and welcome to Filmy Ladies. And happy birthday to Filmy Lady favorite, the late, great Shashi Kapoor. This is a Shashi Kapoor fangirl YouTube account. This is also a Shashi Kapoor fangirl episode. So I will ask Beth to introduce and to kick off birthday festivities.
This was actually Pitu's idea, but of course I took no convincing because he's my favorite. So how fun. I know it's not even been a year since we did our Kapoor Shashi episode, and we've talked about quite a few of his films kind of here and there over the course of our projects, such as our Seven Deadly Sins series, where we talked about Junoon and Kaliug. We talked about Shakespeare Walla when Manish was here to join us for Love Triangles. We've obviously talked about Waqt. So Shashi is everywhere, as is right and proper. So today is just a pure Shashi fest. We've each watched 3 films. So we're going to talk about 6 films today. Buckle up. And the approach that Pitu suggested, which I love, is to do young, middle-aged, older-ish Shashi Kapoor films. And as the resident Shashi scholar, I've come up with a little set of dates that I think works really well for this project. So obviously, most of us know he did act as a child, like wee baby when he played Raj Kapoor. Apparently, he's in Paranita as a servant or something, which I didn't know, and that makes me want to rewatch Paranita. But his debut film, Dharmputra, obviously his debut film as an adult, which Pitu did watch. So that's really exciting. So we're going to start his career in 1961 with Dharmputra, directed by Yash Chopra. What a debut. Can't complain. How great. And then, in my opinion, his young years go up until 1972, when he stars in the international film Siddhartha with Simi Garawal, which is an adaptation of the Hermann Hesse novel. This film is not great. I actually tried to rewatch it for this project, and I was like, nope, can't do it. Nope.
Who's the director of Siddhartha? Remind me.
Conrad Rooks.
Okay, I do not know who that is.
I was about to say he's German. I don't actually know that that's true, but and I don't know if you want to say that Siddhartha is the end of his youth or the kickoff of his middle age, like which does it go? But to me, that's the point, because it takes a certain maturity to choose to do a role like that and to acquit yourself even remotely well, I think. And I think he does. It's not a great film, in my opinion. He's also not his very best, but I think he does well enough. So then for me, it goes 1972 to 1984 when Jennifer Kendall dies and his world basically falls apart. So we've got, 11 years for youth, 12 for middle, and then I'm putting everything after that as older age, even though when she died, he was in his mid 40s. So he's not actually old. He's our age. I'm not going to call him old, but his rate of starring films obviously goes way down, as it does for many men of that age, although not all of them. But he continues apace in the masala and international and parallel worlds. Actually, as an older man, as his first and only directorial film, Juba, which I'm not talking about. I know you thought I would, but I won't. And then into his, until he stops acting, he's doing all sorts of interesting international and other things. So I feel like we've got these threads that run across his life, but those are 2 important points, I thought, to break it. I think you could argue the youth to middle age could break several other parts of the 70s, but that's where I wanted to put it. Also, as our friends at Khandan have been doing an 80s Dhamaka series, which is really fun, it does make you realize decades are completely arbitrary. It's not like it's January 1st, 1970, and everyone's in bell bottoms and Manmohan Desai is the only person making films, right? So I think that these kind of life events and artistic choices are actually better for when you're looking at one person anyway.
I think also, like jumping off of your point, it's like I feel like the definition of middle age and youth and old age has become so scrambled now, especially because the millennial generation has consistently missed many of the points that were considered like markers of adulthood. And a lot of us who watch like older films comment on how when you look at someone from an older era and then you discover their age and you're like, wait, what? They're that age? Because they look so much older than you. Like just the other day, I saw a meme where someone posted like a picture from Golden Girls, and she was supposed to be a golden girl, but actually she was like 44 years old. And I was like, wow, okay. So even notions of like what counts as middle age anymore are so different. And there's an old Shashi Kapoor interview that I had WhatsApped you. I think it was recorded when he was visiting Canada or the UK. And in that, he literally refers to himself as a buzurg, an elderly man. And he says, Ab main buzurg ban gaya hu. And he references his age and he says, I'm 46 years old. And I'm like, that's elderly. Okay, sure. Great.
Well, that's the year Jennifer Kendall dies. He's 46
right.
when she dies. So
Yeah.
interesting.
So, and that also brings up concepts of like, what is aging though, right? Like there's people that are like in their 70s and they still have the youthfulness and naivete and kind of stars in their eyes. But I've also met people who are like in their 30s and they seem very much ready to be like done with everything. So lots of
And this is
interesting
this is
ideas.
something I think all all Hindi cinema fans are confronting as the Khans turn 60 this year.
Yeah.
And while there are things about Salman Khan that seem old to
Hmm.
me, things that don't, but also they don't seem old or senior to
Yeah.
me. And yes, they are within 10 years of my own age, and that's part of it, but also they just don't. Whereas like Rishi Kapoor, by the time he was 40, he seemed like he was 70. So,
Yeah.
when you compare him to his son about here's what 40 looks like, it just
Hmm.
changes so much with
Yeah.
culture and with changes in science and how we view health and what we do for our health and what
Hmm.
health issues each individual may or may not have. But yeah, I think it's mostly cultural, right? So,
Some of it is also what you tell yourself, right? Like, for
yes.
example, when my mom was younger, she wore a lot of bold colors, a lot of bright colors and reds and hot pinks and
Mm,
stuff like that. And then she entered her 40s and there was this immediate shift and her entire wardrobe became pastels. And
ah,
then I got to an age where I started wearing saris regularly and she shunted off all of her bold, brightly patterned saris to me, which was, of course, a windfall. But I was
yeah.
like, well, why are you giving away your favorite sari, which was like scarlet French chiffon? And she was like, well, I'm too old to wear that. She was in her 40s though.
Yeah.
A lot that is cultural conditioning too, though, right? Because it's
Hmm.
like, well, I'm in my 40s. How can I wear a scarlet
Hmm.
sari now? I will only wear like pastels. So that's also, it's like, is the person buying into ideas of aging and what that looks like? And, concepts like that too.
Yeah, very much. And I think for Shashi, had his wife not died when she did, I suspect his middle would have gone on for
Mm,
longer, but
yeah.
who is to know?
Hmm.
Please talk about Dharmputra. I love this movie and I'm glad that you watched it.
I was so surprised when I watched Dharmputra because, first of all, I had never heard of it.
Mm,
I only watched it because you suggested it. And I was like, okay, that sounds like a good, like that's his debut as an adult. Also, it's a
mhm,
B.R. Chopra production. Also, it's a Yash Chopra directorial. Like, it just seems like something I should watch
mhm.
as a movie connoisseur. And I was really taken aback by how well his character was written and how well
Yeah.
he portrayed it. I was kind of shocked that this was his debut film because he was very, very good in it. And I'm not just saying that because I like Shashi. It's a very interesting, multi-layered character, and it's a very interesting multi-layered movie that like kept me on my toes. Like, I didn't know what was quite going on, and I think that was
Mm,
intentional. That wasn't like bad directing, it was just interesting. So the gist of the movie is that the reason it's called Dharmputra is because it's like, the idealistic one, the one that believes in like his religion or spirituality or something, which can mean all sorts of things.
mm,
And he's basically like a freedom fighter and he's like a patriot, which sounds like really good things until he slowly starts getting kind of he starts becoming very strangely xenophobic. And of course, some of that has to do with the era and the fact that there's also a chance of
mm,
partition happening. And like so many people were completely opposed to the idea of partition because they're like, we're not giving part of our country away. And it's very interesting because the way it's written, you can see that B.R. Chopra is not necessarily taking a side, but he's basically providing a look into that sort of zeitgeist
yeah.
and what the people were thinking and how they're being influenced. There's literally political discussions happening at his table, and there's this very, very filmy masala plot where the film basically begins with Mala Sinha being an unwed mother, and she has to be hidden away because she's pregnant, and that baby is of course Shashi Kapoor, and because she's unmarried, the baby's adopted, and she's Muslim, and then the baby's adopted by these Hindu parents, and the mom is Nirupa Roy. She's wonderful in this film, by the way. And so they raise this child, and his name is Dilip, and so he's raised as a Hindu, and he's very proud of being Hindu, and he's like a really idealistic, patriotic young man. And then he slowly starts getting more and more sort of hardened in a way that his parents never are. And they've certainly raised him very well, I think. There's a very interesting scene where Nirupa Roy basically tries to argue with him, and she says things like, well, what is dharma anyway? And she's like, the same dharma you're talking about was also responsible for women, literally young girls, jumping on the funeral pyre of their husband. What about that? Are we going to condone that? And instead of responding to her, he says, well, I don't want to talk, I don't want to argue with you, ma. And it's like, no, why are you not arguing now? You were ready to scream in your mom's face like 5 minutes earlier, but now that she's made a point you don't like, you don't want to argue anymore. But he portrays that so well. His character is not necessarily vilified, but his character is shown as someone who is passionate and idealistic, and he keeps kind of, there's these winds of change that are happening, and he is vacillating between them. And then he has the way he's been raised, and then all of those things happen, and then the masala element of course comes into play when things really get very, very heated and boiled up. And he is literally leading a mob of people who want to get rid of Malasina and Rahman because they are Muslim. And at that moment, of course, there's a very filmy Chopra event that happens where Nirpa Roy basically says, oh yeah, go ahead and kill her. She's your mother, by the way. And he's like, what? And then he has to confront the identity that he's actually Muslim, and he was born to Muslim parents, and his adoptive parents and his biological parents never ever got taken in by the rhetoric the way he did. And in the end, there is a redemption arc for him, which I also liked. I liked that the film ended on an optimistic note, and it ended on a note of you can find your way back to like lightness and kindness and empathy and things like that, and you're not a lost cause. It was also interesting because our friend Vikas from Let's Talk Melbourne has been posting on Instagram about this show he's watching, which is about incels. It's on Netflix Australia. I forget the name, but it's about
I think it's adolescence, right?
Yes, adolescence, and it's about that. And I think that these are I think people who are in that age group where they're teenagers or they're in their young 20s, let's face it, their brains are not completely developed yet. And I think it's very important to make sure that not quite censorship, but it's important to see what kind of ideas are being implanted in their brains, so to speak. I think that's very important to like keep open dialogue and make sure that they don't fall into these pits, basically. So I just think Dharmputra is such a well-made film. Even though it's from 1961, it is relevant for all eras. And I really think that, I don't know if I would go so far as to say that this is a film that parents of teenagers should be made to watch, but I do think that it could really spur some good dialogue about pay attention to what your kid is listening to, pay attention to what your kid is accessing, because one day it could be a huge giant problem, and you need to nip that in the bud. And that responsibility starts at home, and also it's on a larger societal level as well. So I really loved how it made me think of so many different things about right-wing ideology, about choosing hate instead of love. But also at the same time, it didn't take away the character's humanity. And it showed like, you can still knock some sense into this stupid person, right? So I just thought it was such a good movie, very well written, very well directed, good performance. And Shashi really acquitted himself extremely well in this film. So I was very pleased that that was the first Shashi film that I watched for this project.
Yeah. And like, as you were saying, what a debut. And then we, again, like he's been acting his whole life. So it's really not in a way.
Yeah.
Now there's a big gap between this and the previous film that he did, apparently. There's about 8 years, it looks like. But obviously he's been acting this whole time on stage. So as we mentioned in our episode about him, like these people who come from a stage background, like they really know what they're doing,
Yeah.
obviously.
Mhm.
Shahrukh.
Right.
And there are others I know, but those are the two that we talk most about. And the people who go to FTII, for example, like you
Yeah. Yeah.
can often really tell. I'm so
Mhm.
glad that you watched this. If I
Yeah.
recall, it did not get a particular amount of attention in the romantics. Is that right?
I don't
It
think it was
must not
mentioned
have,
at
because you would
all.
have registered it more, I
Yeah.
think. Um,
Hmm.
do I remember
It's
right
also
that
not a movie that gets talked about.
I
Like
don't
when
think
people
so.
talk about Yash Chopra, they talk about obviously the Chandnis and the Lamhes, and then they do talk about Trishul Diwar Kalapathar. No one really talks about this film.
Is this Yash Chopra's debut as a director too, I think?
I don't know for sure, but I feel like it has to be, right? Because it's
Uh,
1961.
do a
It's
quick,
so
I'll do a
old.
quick look. I think it is. I can't remember. Um, yeah, and it's one of those, it's a oh no, there's the earlier one, Dual Kapoor, but this is
Okay.
his second film as a director. Um, this when I see this film mentioned, it's in the context of partition films,
Mm, like
understandably. But
Waqt and yeah.
mhm,
But it's interesting because I have seen like a fair bit of partition films, but they never talk about the genesis of the thinking. Very few
yeah,
movies actually talk about the genesis of the. It's also kind of why I want to watch Adolescence. I don't know if I have the stomach for it, but I may have to force myself to watch it. But I think especially now with all of this red pill stuff that's going on, and the Tate brothers are now welcome in America again.
mm,
It's I think perhaps those of us who are not inclined in these ways need to maybe think about what those echo chambers are like, even though
yeah,
it's very disturbing for us.
yeah.
So, very good movie. I highly recommend this to Shashi Kapoor fans.
Yay.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't have to be a Shashi fan to like it, I don't think.
No,
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think it's a really good movie, and I actually weirdly think that parents of young children, especially male children, should watch this film because it's
Yeah.
a good look at the psychology of outside forces shaping a moldable brain.
Yeah. Yeah. And do I remember right that who's his love interest?
I don't know that actress. I've never seen her before, and she's okay. She doesn't have a lot to do.
Is it Indrani Mukherjee? I
Maybe
think.
I don't know.
I can't remember, but there's
She has
someone.
like a few. She doesn't really matter. Like she's
Yeah, she's
fine.
cute though, if I
Yeah.
remember right. Is it? It is. Yeah, it is
Okay.
Indrani Mukherjee. I like her as moms in the 70s, so I was always
Mm.
glad to see her. All right, my young Shashi film. I You will see over the course of this conversation that I chose bizarrely. Like I had all these different ideas of what I was going to do, and then I'd start a thing and be like, nah, and then I'd try another thing, like, nah. So apologies. There's no thread to these movies other than that they have Shashi Kapoor in them. I wanted to
Yeah.
provide a more thoughtful approach, but here we are. So
Mine don't either. Just FYI. I just went by instinct.
I I chose Pyaar Kiye Jaa. Is this a film that you have
Okay.
seen?
Have I seen this? Who's in it?
So
It's
Shashi Kishore Kumar, Mahmood, Om Puri, sorry, Om Prakash, not Om Puri, Om Prakash, uh, and Mumtaz, and then two other women in the love interest role. So we have
yes.
Rajashri, who's billed as Rajashri of South, and then Kalpana Mohan.
Okay, I think I've seen this ages ago on television, and I mostly
Sure.
know the songs from this film, but I do not remember much. But the songs are really good.
That's one reason I wanted to rewatch it. I think the songs in this movie are really, really fun. And
Mhm.
I did choose it for that reason because I wanted to make sure we talked about Shashi as a song purveyor because I think he's good at it. He doesn't get the credit that his older brothers do. And obviously he's doing something different and he's not creating them the way Raj Kapoor would have. But I do think he acquits himself really well. So for those who've not seen this film, it is a shot by shot remake of a Tamil film by the director's same Tamil film.
Okay.
And it is the story of these two friends, Kishore Kumar and Shashi, who embroil themselves in this rich family. And so that's Om Prakash and his two daughters.
Hmm.
And both of the men are attached to one of these women. And Shashi is the kind of assistant manager of the estate that Om Prakash owns. And Mehmood is the son of this guy. And Mehmood, so this, as far as I know, is the origins of Vah Vah Productions because Mehmood
Ah.
Mahmood is starting a film company. It's called Vah Vah Productions,
Nice.
and he selects Mumtaz from she's like in the field as a village belle, and he's like, "You are my new heroine." Uh,
Which is
and
how Mumtaz became a heroine. She used to be like in the dance lineup. She was like a dance extra.
so cute, and they are adorable in this. I don't think I've ever enjoyed Mahmood more than this, and he's not a comedy guy that I dislike, but
Uh-huh.
he really has a role in this, and I think he's very funny. And of course, all the film world jokes are really funny. And he has a line
Right.
somewhere about when Shashi is in the room about Jab Jab Phul Ki Le, and
Mhm.
it comes out in 1966. Somewhere this film is listed as 1970. That is not correct. It is 1966. So I checked the certificate at the beginning of the film. Um, and it's a comedy. It's literally sunshine all the time in this film. They have big cars. Nobody has any actual problems. It's kind of a romantic comedy, although mostly just a comedy. But the songs really are just so good. They're Lakshmikant Pyarlal.
Mhm.
And the one I love the most is what I often refer to as the socialist twist. Shashi has a
Mhm.
song where he's been fired by Om Prakash,
Okay.
and because he has a run-in with the two daughters and they don't realize who each other are, and he's rude to the daughters and they insist that their dad fire him. And so he and some friends like set up a tent outside the property and are like protesting, give me my job back. And then they have this amazing Beatlesy sounding pop song where they're protesting the wrongful dismissal.
Okay.
It's like a labor rights twist.
Right.
It's so great. It's so great. And I know a lot of people, when I show them this song, are like, oh, it's like Shummy. I'm like, no, because it's controlled. It's
Yes.
very energetic, but it's like actual choreography. He's not doing whatever he wants because the backing dancers are doing it with him. So you know that he
Mhm.
learned, or they're doing something in reference to what he's doing. So like he learned some steps for this. I have no evidence that Shami Kapoor never took choreography and just made up his own stuff, but that's certainly what it looks like. Um, and I just think this song is so funny. I'll be sure to link it in the show notes if you're not interested in watching the whole movie, but it's super cute. I highly recommend
I
it.
was Googling the soundtrack to see which song that might be, but okay.
Kena Kina Himbat. Um,
Okay.
so good. There's another song where Shashi and he's kind of tormenting the two women because they have one of them has a flat tire and he's like, don't let your fair hands touch the
Right.
tire pump, like don't do any work. And he's all like, he's trying to be saucy kind of, and he's like, oh, and, like pressing
Oh,
his hips around and everything. It's really funny.
that's
Rafi sings for
cute.
him a couple times in this movie, and I really like that pairing. And of course, Kishore Kumar sings for himself, which is always a joy. And
Right.
his role in this movie is they are friends, but Shashi asks him to pretend to be his dad for comedy reasons. So Kishore
Okay.
Kumar puts on like beard and glasses and carries
Of
a
course he
cane
does.
and adopts a different voice, and he's like, but
Right.
it's actually funny. And I know there's a lot about this film that I should not find funny, and I would not in other hands, but I just I just think it's a delight. I highly recommend people watch this
Okay.
cute film. And as anyone will tell you, if you post about it publicly, this is I already mentioned it's a Tamil remake. The Tamil is good too. I've watched that as well.
Okay.
But I think I saw it without subtitles. So, I don't know any
Mm.
Tamil whatsoever. But and those stars don't mean anything to me. So I
Mhm.
am biased, but I do freaking love this film.
Nice. Maybe I should like rewatch it because I like those kind of rom-com films that are just like they're just fun, they're just
Just
cute,
fun.
people look pretty, their costumes
Absolute
are
candy
nice, and
floss.
it's
Yeah.
just yeah. And I do love Shashi, I do love Kishore Kumar, and I do love Mahmood. I also do love Mumu, so that's like a
Yeah,
great cast for
it's a
me.
great cast. And there's a couple of other older guys in this who play various dads and stuff. And I can't remember who any of them are. I didn't
Mm,
recognize any of them, but they again, everyone knows what they're doing in this film. It's like everyone's
mm.
acquitting themselves just right. And even if there's a scene, I think my favorite scene other than those songs is actually when um Mahmood is narrating to his dad the plot of a horror film he wants to make because he's trying to get his dad to finance the film.
Nice.
And he has this extended, basically monologue of what's happening in the film. And I think he's doing all the like scary sound effects and voices
Okay.
himself. If they're dubbed, they're like
Bang
bang
on.
on. But I think he's doing it and he's making like woo noises and
Right.
all, and it's really, really funny. It's kind of in the middle of the film. So
I want this horror film to be made.
I know by Vah Vah Productions.
Yes, I want Baba. In fact, in Nandaz Apna Apna, when he's talking about Baba Productions, he does say that the film he has under production at that time is Dracula Ki Maut.
No,
And that's
that's
what he says,
right.
it's Dracula. So it's not Dracula, it's
Dracula.
Dracula ki maut.
I've never read if the makers of Anda Zapna Apna were referring to this film or not, or
They
if just
may be.
Vava
They
Productions is
got to
just an
be.
obvious and funny name. But this to me, as far as I know, this is the first instance of it.
Nice.
So funny. So funny. Okay, we're going to turn the corner into
Trishna.
middle age with Trishna. Talk about Trishna,
Yes.
which I've seen, but I don't
So
recall super well.
Trishna is 1978.
Mhm.
And Shashi Kapoor was born in 1938, so he is smack dab 40 years old in this film. He looks extremely handsome
The
and
curls, right?
gorgeous.
Ah,
His fashions in this movie are amazing.
yeah.
He actually wears like a bright pink, like a candy pink shirt in one scene. And I was just like,
He
oh,
looks
Shashi
so good
Kapoor in
in
candy
pink.
pink. He looks
Yeah.
amazing in pink. Yeah,
Yeah.
he can really carry off like those shades of pinks and lilacs and stuff.
Yeah.
But Trishna is a film I'd never heard of. I literally just went on YouTube and I was like looking for films of a certain era where he
Hmm.
would count as middle aged. And I landed upon Trishna and I was like, okay, it has Rakhi, whom I like. It
Hmm.
has Sanjeev Kumar that I don't have strong feelings about, but he's usually fine. And it's like, I'll watch this movie for Shashi. Also, it
Hmm.
was billed as like a thriller, like a
Yeah.
whodunit. So I was like,
Yeah.
okay, this sounds like it's up
Yeah.
my alley. So let me give this a shot.
Did you look at
I
the poster of it?
I have not looked at the poster of it.
I had only, I think it's on Letterboxd where I first saw this. So like I said, I've seen this film, but I didn't remember. But there's an amazing poster with like Rocky's face and then tree branches coming out of the back of her
Ooh,
head. It's really
I see it.
atmospheric and cool.
It's
And
a little horror filmy.
yeah, the
Yeah.
poster has more vibes that way than I feel like the film itself probably did, but it's a great poster.
Yeah. Um, I am actually Googling the meaning of the name of the word Trishna in Hindi, and it
Mm.
apparently says it means craving, which is very
Ah,
interesting.
perfect.
How
Yeah.
interesting, or
Hmm.
thirst, craving.
Hmm.
Um, so I know this film is billed as like a whodunit, and it's like marketed as like a whodunit or a thriller, and there is that aspect to it. But really, what I think this film is about, and this film is by director Anil Ganguly, this film to me is an exposition or an exploration of the concept of emotional infidelity,
Hmm.
um, which is very rarely seen in Hindi cinema. I think in Hindi cinema, infidelity basically just means you slept with someone, but there's
Mm.
not much concept of emotional infidelity. And I just feel like this film was amazing for that reason. So the story of Trishna is very interesting. Rakhi is a very bored housewife who is married to an extremely busy doctor, Sanjeev Kumar, who never has any time for her, and she's lonely. She cannot have children, and they have lots of money and all the luxuries in life, but she's basically lonely and she has no one to talk to all day. And whenever she asks him to come home early, like there's several times that she's made his favorite food and she wants to have like a nice dinner with her husband,
Mm.
and he flakes out on her because there's an important surgery he has to attend to or whatever. And so she's very like, I guess she feels alone in her marriage, and she was very lonely and unloved in her marriage. There's also a scene that really made me hate Sanjeev Kumar, where they're at like a medical, like a party, like a dinner, and he disparagingly, I mean, he's joking, but like whatever, it's still a dig. He's on his like first whiskey, and he makes a joke about, oh, do you know my wife likes to do sketches, and she called me the other day and said, can you come home and look at my sketches? And she's just standing there watching him, and then he said, and my wife's art is like, I look at it and I can't see what's up and what's down. And I was like, you absolute jerk.
Oh, it's so
He's
awful.
so awful. I was like,
Mm.
I already hate you. But he's basically shown as this person who's very self-absorbed, and his whole identity is being a doctor, and he is really kind of a terrible husband, I would say. Again, I like that the film portrays him as a terrible husband because he is sort of emotionally abandoned his wife and he doesn't have any time for
Mm.
her, rather than the very typical ham-handed way in which Hindi films depict terrible husbands. Like, you're a terrible husband because you slapped your wife. You're not a terrible husband because you're off earning a living and you couldn't care less what your wife does and you mock her hobbies, right? But I like
Mhm.
the fact that he's portrayed as this person who just does not fulfill his wife on any level, and so that's why she's so like sad. And so anyway, she goes to Kandala, where their bungalow is being built, and her sister lives there. Her sister, by the way, is Bindu. And I
Yes.
love Bindu. But whenever I see Bindu, she is like a vamp and she's doing these amazing dances. And she's always dressed in the most fabulous, like sequin jumpsuits. And she's being like fabulous. And like, I love her so much. But in this movie, I kept waiting for her to turn into a sequin jumpsuit and she never did.
Mm-mm.
She's this very like gharelu housewife with like a child, and she's always wearing saris and her hair is in a bun and she wears a Mangal Sutra and she's like the older sister. And I was like, okay, I like this avatar, but also I kind of miss the sequin jumpsuit. Like maybe you could have like a drunken scene where you like busts out a cool outfit, but she never does, which was a little sad. But I thought she acted really well in this film. Um, so Bindu and her husband and their son, the interior decorator of the Khandala bungalow is no other person than Shashi Kapoor. Just by the way, you never see him actually doing any interior decoration stuff. There's no mood boards, there's no fabric swatches. He just like swans in wearing his nice bell bottoms and his outfits, just looking very suave and handsome. But you don't actually see him working. But I'm
He
like, okay,
decorates by vibe.
he decorates by vibe, I think. Yeah. And of course, he's this bubbly, romantic, adorable person. And by the way, he's also an ex-classmate of Rocky's from college, where they used to do plays together. And of course, the play they did together was Salim and Anarkali, because of course. And he's a little bit of a manic pixie dream guy. His role in this, he's very like wee, which I love. I love wee Shashi Kapoor, but he's wee Shashi Kapoor. And so of course, duh, our lady Rocky is going to fall for him. And he also has carried a torch for her since his college days. He just never verbalized it, because when he was going to say to her that he loves her, their classmate basically says to him, you know, she's getting married, right? Like her marriage has been fixed. And he's like, damn it. So he doesn't do that. So in this movie, they start hanging out together because he's always there doing God knows what, vibing. And she's always there because Sanjeev Kumar was supposed to join her in Khandala and he can't because he's off doctoring. And of course, they fall in love. And so there's a lot of like emotional infidelity happening, but it's not considered infidelity because it's a Hindi film, but like I think it is. And then one stormy night, a gun goes off, and we think that a certain vibey interior decorator has been shot, but has he really? And then he shows up with amnesia, our favorite Hindi medical diagnosis. He has amnesia. He doesn't remember who shot him. And now Sanjeev Kumar has to treat him. And it's so great. I love the tension. I love when Shashi Kapoor is over there and he's just looking at Rocky. And you can't tell, is this a ruse? Is this a way to trick her? Or has he truly forgotten everything and he truly does have amnesia? And then Rocky is just tiptoeing on eggshells the entire time, because she's like, holy shit, this is a guy that my husband is going to definitely think I had an affair with him. And also, I shot a gun at him and my sister helped me cover stuff up, which, by the way, if I ever commit a murder, I want Bindu to be there. Because she was so great. She was really helpful, I thought.
So is the gunfire an accident?
Yes.
Okay.
So she didn't intend to kill him. It was like a very passionate, high stakes. There was a thunderstorm and she's like having all these emotions and he's really pushing the point. Like he's basically saying to her, you love me, I love you, you're just with this man who doesn't fulfill you, will never fulfill you, by the way. He doesn't give two shits about you. You're only with him because of like society, right? Like log kya kahenge. So why do you want to be miserable the rest of your life? Which honestly, that's like a pretty fair thing to say. It's just he's really pushing the point and she's not ready to take that step yet. Like she's just not there.
He's not hearing no.
Yeah, he's not hearing no. So again, it brings up also concepts of like consent, because in the beginning of that conversation, I was very much team Shashi, where I was like, yeah, girl, like Sanjeev Kumar is never going to have time for you. This man loves you. You love him. Walk away from that useless dead marriage and be happy with this guy. But the way he keeps pushing her, she's on the verge of tears. She really doesn't want to hear it. She's very cloistered and sheltered, and even the idea of stepping out on her marriage or getting divorced is like anathema to her. And he keeps pushing, and I was like, now he's just being a jerk. Can you like back off maybe? Like, you know, stop pushing her so much, right? So it's just a very interesting film, and it's like a very grown-up look at like
Yeah.
marriage. And so I don't actually think it's the thriller that they seem to think it is. It's really not that much of a whodunit. It's really an exploration of marriage, is what I would
Okay.
say. And there's also, I love the scene between Sanjeev Kumar and Shashi Kapoor, where Sanjeev Kumar basically is like, "What the heck? You basically tried to have an affair with my wife. Like, what is wrong with you?" And Shashi Kapoor is like, "Yeah, your wife, the one you have no time for." And I just thought that was like a really good discussion too, because like so
Yeah.
many Hindi films portray that the wife should just be grateful to her husband because he earns a paycheck and he keeps her in like house and home and stuff like that. And it's like, no, marriage also involves and includes other things. So I like the fact that, Sanjeev Kumar kind of gets his comeuppance and he realizes the error of his ways and everything. Interesting movie.
How is the chemistry between Rocky and Shashi?
So good.
I
So
love them
good.
together. They are a
But
underrated Jody. They are
they
so
are always great together. I mean, even in like Kabhi Kabhi and stuff, like, the longing glances and everything that they
hmm
made, they're adorable together. I mean, of course, in
hmm
Kabhi Kabhi, he actually gets her and
Yeah.
Amitabh doesn't. But I really like, it's interesting to me. It's like a bit of an opposites attract thing because I have never seen Rakhi bubbly, with the exception of Sharmili, where she's the bubbly one. She's
Right.
usually like the quiet, perceptive, observant, still waters run deep
hmm
sort of a person, extremely beautiful, but just kind of like a little bit of a mystery. She has like a mysterious aura about her. And usually in those films, Shashi Kapoor is wee, so I like the contrast between them, but they have great chemistry in this film.
So while you were talking and you named the director, I was like, why have I heard that name recently? That's the director of Saheb that you brought to our
Yes,
discussion
which
of
was
Amrita
horrible.
Singh. Yeah. And then also I was reading, he did a remake of Mahanagar with Rocky, which now I must see.
Yeah, I think Balidan, is it called Balidan?
Hum Kadam.
Okay, mate, that's a different one then. Okay. Yeah. Also, this movie Trishna is a copy of a Tamil film as well. So when you were saying
Ah,
that Pyaar Ki Jaa, but I don't know the
oh, so
Tamil
it
film. I
is.
haven't seen him.
Dun
But I really like this
dun.
film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds I yeah, when you were telling me you were watching this, I kind of remembered up to the shooting, and that's as far as I can rem I definitely have seen it, but I just don't.
Yeah.
So I need to rewatch.
I wouldn't necessarily say that this is like a must-watch film, like as Shashi Kapoor films go or something. I wouldn't be
hmm
like, oh my God, people have to watch this. But it was just an interesting film. It's an interesting film to watch once.
Yeah.
And it does raise like certain good questions about concepts like emotional infidelity and
Honestly,
stuff.
seems
So
like
I
the kind
like
of
it.
film Yash Chopra would make.
Yes, it definitely has a bit of a Yash Chopra vibe to it, I would say. Yeah.
Mm.
And he deals with Yash Chopra also, I think, does a good job of dealing with distant husbands, as we
Yeah.
see in Silsila, like the kind of husband that Amitabh Bachchan is in Silsila, or also the kind of husband that Amitabh Bachchan is in Kabhi Kabhi towards Wahida, where these husbands are not necessarily like, they're not abusive and they're
Right.
not necessarily toxic, but these are not men who can make any woman happy because they're just so self-absorbed. They're so selfish at their core for different reasons. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was your third film?
My middle-aged Shashi film is Chori Mera Kaam. Have you
Okay.
seen Chori Mera Kaam?
I feel like I probably have on TV, but it is not ringing a bell.
This is another one that I love that I feel is under discussed. So this is again basically a comedy, and our four leads are Shashi Kapoor, Zinat Aman, and yes, they eventually become a couple, Prawn, and Ashok Kumar. So like who knew that this was a comedy dream team? But like honestly,
Yeah.
this movie is so funny. So Shashi is a pickpocket. He and Zenat, do pickpocketery together. They get in cahoots with Ashok Kumar, who's like a um who is a another figure kind of in their lives. And Prawn is, of course, a police detective. Um, and I just love this freaking movie. I think it's so funny. It's got cute songs. There's one where Shashi and Zenat are kind of romancing, and there's a whole thing about give me your heart, and there's an actual beating heart. Someone holds an actual heart. Also a little like glitter Valentine, but then also like
Okay.
I don't know what animal it's from, a pig or something, I assume, but like yeah. So it's got its like weird flights of like kind of
Right.
hopping
Gory
around.
fancy.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've written about this film quite a bit, so I don't, I almost want to be like, just go, I've said what I should say about this film, but I just think it's a treat. And there's a lot of wigs and disguises and people doing fun voices and a villain lair and like all that kind of stuff. So, and Ashok Kumar is someone that I am always happy to see. And he's actually in the last film I watched too. And this one, he has not yet reached like, I'm just going to be here for one day and you get like 3 hours of my time or whatever. He's really in the film more and he's
Mm,
very funny. And, he plays kind of this father figure or whatever. So
yeah.
that's totally enjoyable.
He was also in Dharmputra as Mala Sinha's dad. And
Right.
the thing about Ashok Kumar that always cracks me up is like, I think of Ashok Kumar as so fun because most of his films that I've seen him in and that I love him in, he's just really funny and he's super like goofy. So when I see Ashok Kumar being serious in a film, and in Dharmputra, he's very serious because his daughter is pregnant out of wedlock and he's
Mhm.
like this elder like Muslim gentleman and he's like, this will not do, please help me, please help my daughter. I it's it always unnerves me because I'm like, okay, but when are you gonna start joking? And then when he doesn't joke and then he doesn't do something goofy, I'm so disappointed. Because he's just such an ace at comedy. But when I see him being like elder statesman or being serious, it like throws me off a little bit. Although he's very good at that.
Yeah. Yeah. I I often forget how big the age difference is between Shashi and Ashok Kumar. Like it's well over 20 years. Like he's quite a bit older than Shashi. Um,
Okay.
I think he's born in 1911 or something like that. He's like, considered almost 30 years older than Shashi. But,
Wow.
they are one of those kind of pairings that I enjoy whenever I happen to see it.
Is Zenith funny in this movie? Because I love Zenith, but I
Yes.
don't think of her as a person with comic timing.
She is, and I'm sure there's a lot of help from writing and the rest of the cast and stuff. Because obviously, like Pran and Ashok Kumar can kind of do this stuff like hands tied behind their backs. No, they are pros, but and Shashi is also someone I think is funny when he wants to be or when someone gives him
Yes.
that stuff. So it's a great setup. Like I feel like everyone kind of. It's not to say everyone is lifting each other. That may not be quite true. I'm sure some people are doing more of the work in that regard, but I think she's a lovely, like frothy presence, but she does have her own role. Like she's got her own stuff, and and again, like the fashions are amazing because it is
Mm,
1975.
mm.
It's just super fun.
So that movie was made 3 years before Trishna. So he's like
Mhm.
37 in this film, or
Yeah,
maybe 36 at the time of shooting. So still
yeah.
like very in his prime, still like the very handsome Shashi
The
that we know.
curls and
The
everything. Yeah.
curls, the charm, the ability to romance heroines behind trees, all of that is still there.
And in the words of someone on YouTube who commented on one of the songs of this movie, what a beautiful and charismatic hero, beautiful Shashi Kapoor. I'm feeling proud that my beautiful city, Peshawar, from where the father of this legend was born, from my beautiful city and DNA of Kapoor family is from our city. But yeah, this one gets, I mean, you come out the same year as Diwar, like people are going to forget that you were there.
Yeah.
100% different
Right.
vibes, obviously, but this is like 1975 to like 1979 for me is like peak Shashi Kapoor. So
Yeah.
this is super super fun, and it was hard to choose which of these movies I wanted to watch. Like there's one where he does he he and Vinod Khanna are like cop and robber that I thought I might rewatch, but I was like, no, I want to think about I didn't end up rewatching this one. I just like skimmed through some of the songs and stuff and looked at my screen grabs, but this is just such a fun one. I wanted a fun one.
Because also at this point, he has been acting as an adult actor for about 15 years at this
Yeah,
point.
good point.
So he has a lot of experience under his belt.
Hmm.
He's done a ton of projects. He's very prolific. His
Hmm.
filmography at this time is massive. He's
Yeah.
done serious movies like Divar. He's contended with massive competition in the likes of Angry Young Man, Amitabh Bachchan himself. And he has to some extent been dethroned as like a hero because it is the era of Amitabh.
Yeah.
And he has had to learn at this point how to not just be the hero that the audience goes to watch, but a little bit of a second fiddle,
Hmm.
right? And that probably is not great for the ego, especially if you're a Kapoor.
I wonder about
um
that. Yeah, because he is obviously now, and I gather at the time as well, beloved as the second hero, right? Like
yeah.
people, this really
Hmm.
works for him two audiences.
Mm-hmm.
And he's never, I do feel Shashi Kapoor is kind of underappreciated in general, but I do think people really like him in these roles and respond to him. It's just that they always talk about Amitabh first.
Yeah, they do.
And I can see why most of the time.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, I am no Amitabh fan, but he has just such a towering personality,
Yeah,
literally, that when you watch him, it's very hard. It's kind of like the person who shouts is going to outshout
totally.
the softer person. Shashi is
Totally.
almost too subtle, which is, of course, what makes him such a phenomenal second lead
Yeah.
in a way, but it still puts him in second place. And I think it's great that he did those roles because to me personally, Shashi is the highlight of those Amitabh and Shashi combinations. But I'm also biased in favor of Shashi and against Amitabh. But I can see where Amitabh just takes away all the limelight and he is the superstar. And at this point, you as Shashi, your star is very much on the wane. You're not gonna any longer have that stop billing because
Hmm.
that's going to be given to Amitabh. This is also around the time that Rajesh Khanna is also having to give way. Basically, the
Yeah.
phenomenon known as Amitabh is coming and he's sweeping everybody
Yeah.
to the side, and projects are being written for him. And he has the very phenomenal pairing of Salim and Javed in his
Yeah.
pockets, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're Shashi Kapoor, which writers do you have in your pockets? You don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's very interesting too. I think this was probably like an era of like challenges for him
Hmm.
and maybe a few hits to his ego, but probably also had to think about, okay, I'm still going to do the best job I can and I'm still going to act really well and people are probably still going to appreciate me, but there's got
Hmm.
to, you got to feel that jab a little bit, I'm sure. So that's
And the films
interesting.
he's most known for in this time period are not solo hits
Right.
either, right? So I I mean when I look at his filmography of the second half of the 1970s, there's just a ton of films and some of them I've not seen yet or like they don't exist, like I can't find them anywhere or whatever.
Yeah.
So he's clearly working a lot, but it
Yeah.
doesn't seem like most of those films are memorable. And sometimes I can understand why that is, but sometimes I think that's unfair because, like, this one, I feel like it's really, really funny. People should watch
Yeah.
it, but most people don't, it doesn't really register.
Yeah. Okay. What was your next film?
My third film, so my older Shashi film, is one I had never heard of and, of course, never seen. And not to be confused with my first one, it is called Pyaar Ki Jeet. It's from
Okay.
1987. And I
It
looked at the
sounds very
I
1987.
looked at the cast and I looked at the plot and I thought, yes, this sounds good. So it is Shashi as the village doctor. Ashok Kumar is his doctor friend who's in the city.
Okay.
Our doctor former friend, as we will see. Shokumar's son is Vinod Mehra, who we know that I like, who's also a doctor, who then comes to work at the village clinic. And Rekha,
Oh, okay.
Rekha is really the star of this film. She plays a young woman from the village who everybody thinks goes off to the city to be a sex worker. And then when she comes back, she has all this money, and everybody is mean to her about it, except for Jagdeep, who's in love with her. And he's honestly not annoying in this movie at all. I don't know what's going
Okay.
on. And then Shashi, who is kind of her father figure in a way. And I don't want to
Okay.
go too much into why all these things are happening because I don't want to spoil it. This is a film I'd never, like, I don't notice anyone talking about this film, but Rekha is marvelous. She has one of those My Name Is heroine entry songs.
Okay.
Uh, Love it. Her name is Sony. In the film, she gets some great outfits. She has a lot to do. You get a good flashback showing how it is that she came to be someone who goes into the city for sex work and comes home all the time. We learn a little bit more about Shashi's career path and how he feels about the villagers he treats, but he's mostly there as like elder, wise elder more than anything else, and
Okay.
voice of reason because there's a scene where the panchayat tries to vote her out of the town and he stands up
Mm.
for her and things like that,
Okay.
and acts as a sounding board for her. So I really enjoyed this film. It had knew nothing going in. I knew it could go totally wrong. Um, and since I knew you were doing In Custody and we'd talked about some of his other slightly later things already, I thought I would do a masala one. So I went
Mm.
purely masala shashi on this one, but Could this role have been played by other people of his generation? Sure. But he's there in his suit and his suspenders and his bow tie being sensible, and he has a heart problem, so every now and again he does one of these. It's very
Aw.
funny. There's a big courtroom scene at the end, and he is not really involved in it, but the judge somehow lets him come up and like he's not even a witness. He just comes up and grandstands and like it's like he's the lawyer. Uh he's really fun in that. He can handle a courtroom sequence, this one. Um
As we remember from Bakht.
yeah, Moon Sen has a bit of a cameo in it. She's part of a thing going on at the courtroom. She's not someone I really have strong feelings about other than,
Mhm.
you are not like your mother.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Anyway, so this is a fun one. It's got some great songs too, and yeah, watch it for Rekha.
What I'm confused about though is the title, because Pyar Ki Jeet literally means victory of love, but it
Yeah,
doesn't sound like there's any sort of love angle
I
in
I
this. Is
forgot to
there?
say that. So
Oh.
when she first arrives in the village, um, Vinod Mehra is like, "Why are you guys being so mean to her?"
Ah.
So she instantly falls in love with him, and she's kind of chasing him throughout the whole film. And I don't think it's a spoiler to say that they have a love story. And someone,
Yeah.
Vikas actually told me this is like the peak of the rumors about them, apparently, or at this time.
Okay.
And the song where we see their love really come to, like he comes around, has a house on top of a big set of stairs, and the door is a little heart, and they come out of it, and
Ah.
it's all like, come to my house of love and all this stuff. It's so cute. And they both have several different avatars in this film, and Rekha is a snake in one of the avatars. Like I was enjoying this song, and then it changes. She's a snake in black, and she's got like the gold
Yeah,
snake
yeah.
jewelry and doing and like on the floor slithering around. And I was like, this is what I love about Masala, because you never know how they're going to get to the resolution. You can usually predict the resolution, but like I did not see any of this coming, and
Right.
I love it.
So does the movie end on like a happy note with
Yes.
Vinod and Rekha?
Yes.
Okay, I do like the Vinod and Rekha pairing. I have to
Hmm.
say, like they are so amazing in Ghar. They have
Mm,
such great chemistry, and they've both acted so well in this movie. Like Ghar is such a good film to watch. Okay, so I have a question for you. We have discussed in the past that we do not think that the Kapoors should A, drive, and B, go to medical school and practice
classic,
medicine,
classic
but
conversation.
he is a doctor in this film. So how do we feel about Shashi Kapoor being your doctor?
Well, interestingly, we find out later in the film that Ashok Kumar and he were like friends back in the day or whatever. And Ashok Kumar is kind of a villain in this. He's like the big city money grubbing. I won't
Mm,
help people who can't pay.
mm,
I want to found a hospital so my son can run it. Um,
mm.
he only cares about money, and he actually shows up in the village and tells Shashi like you're nothing and you have these foreign degrees, but look how you've wasted your education just in this dusty cow town. You don't have any of the new machines, blah blah blah. You're ruining my son's career, whatever. And Shashi is very like good
How
natured about it.
rude.
And yeah, he's really a jerk in this movie. And Shashi, argues back and is like, fine, leave. I don't care. He's like, I
Yeah,
like helping people, and you will never know the gratitude,
right.
the warmth of your patients that I know. However, in the beginning of the film, when he's taking Vinod Mehra on rounds for the first time, he just yells at all his patients. So there's like a woman who throws her garbage into the street, and he's like, "How dare you? You got to keep our village clean because this causes diseases. Come down here and pick up your garbage." Then there's
Right.
a there's a larger man who's like, "Oh, I'm eating my light breakfast today," and Shashi shames him for what he's eating. Um, and so he's kind of a curmudgeon, but he's also cheerful at the same time. So this isn't
Yeah.
like wee shushy, but it's like the elder version of it where he's like jovial with his little bow tie, except when people
Yeah.
cross his medical. Oh, and my favorite was there's a couple who comes in and they're
Oh yeah, you
pregnant,
told
and
me.
he's like, "This is your fifth child," and he yells at the man like, "I told you, don't do this to your wife again."
Right, nice. Shashi Kapoor as family planning consultant. We love to
Yeah,
see it.
yeah. It's So we don't really see him doing a whole lot of doctoring. Vinod Mehra has a little bit more because Rekha, whenever she gets an injury or pretends to get an injury, she goes to him.
Mm,
So you see him
okay.
doing, but yeah, it's very small town family doctor. There's no particular
Okay.
medical drama or anything. They just happen to be doctors. I think they
Yeah.
could have been other things, except the courtroom scene happens because Vinod Mehra and Rekha are driving along the road, and Moon Moon Sen and her husband have been in an accident, and she's like flagging down. And then Vinod Mehra is like, "Oh, I can help. I'm a doctor." And then he's like, "Oh no, your husband needs surgery, but the hospital is 20 kilometers away. I'm just gonna have to operate right here." And then things happen, and then there's a courtroom scene. So that part requires medical, I guess. But
Okay. I will say I do buy Shashi Kapoor as a doctor only because I've seen the movie Swati, which is
right,
also middle-aged Shashi Kapoor,
right,
and Sharmila Tagore is his nurse. So he's like a doctor who owns his own like private clinic, and his daughter is a very, very young Madhuri Dixit,
so
who is a
cute.
complete brat in the film. And his nurse is Sharmila Tagore, and her
Wow.
daughter is Meenakshi Shishdhari. And honestly, I would go to that Dr. Shashi Kapoor and I would love to get my wounds tended to by Nurse Shamala Tagore. They're an
Yeah.
adorable couple in that film.
I
Um,
actually thought about doing this whole thing with Shasha films, but I decided
yeah,
not to.
that's the subgenre you love so
I
much.
do.
At first, when you started talking about this film, you were like, so Shashi's a village doctor. And I was like, wait, what? First of all, doctor. Second of all, village. Like, village and Shashi are not two words that go
Yeah. So
together.
that I was thinking about that too, because I would have to really think if I've seen him play a villager. I've seen him play bandits.
Yes.
I've seen him play cops who were stationed in rural areas.
Mhm.
But yeah, he's not usually from the village. But
Yeah.
yeah, so he's clearly a bigger deal doctor, but who has chosen to, for whatever
Right.
reason, work and stay in this village. I don't think there's any dialogue about like, oh, my grandmother's from here or anything like that. I think
Right.
he's just there. I don't know. I don't know why.
So he's technically still like an urban person. Because when I say like Shashi Kapoor is a villager, I'm thinking like, you're wearing
Farmer.
dhotis and kurta, right?
Yeah,
You're
no.
speaking in like a different dialect. But no, this guy is in like suits
He's
and bow
mostly wearing a
ties and he's
tweed
just
jacket and
practicing
bow
there.
tie.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's not a villager.
No, no.
Okay, amazing.
And yours is
Mine
the great in
is
custody.
the very great In Custody slash Muhafiz from 1993. I have never read the Anita Desai book that it's based on,
Mm.
but my husband has, and he was like, "You really need to read this book." So I was like, "Okay, I will." But I love this movie so much, and I saw it in the afternoon back when I lived in India, and NFDC films would be shown. It like they would show these films in the afternoon, and that's how I watched all of these parallel films. And I love this movie so much, and I picked it as my old Shashi movie because for some reason I thought he's in his 70s in this film, right? And then I did the math and he's 55.
Yeah.
But he very much does not look like a 55-year-old
He
old.
went
He
method on
very
this one.
much, yeah, he very much looks like he's in his 70s in this film.
Yeah.
Like it is like almost like a decrepit
Hmm.
Shashi in this film,
Hmm.
which really adds to it. Like he's so amazing. And this film is so heartbreaking. Everyone in this film is top notch. Om Puri is top notch in this movie. Like every scene of his, that man just like speaks with his eyes. I
Mm.
love Om Puri's acting. The hero worship with which he looks at at Shashi Kapoor. And it's like it always kept reminding me of that saying, where they say never meet your heroes. Yeah. I'm probably going to be destroyed when I meet Shah Rukh Khan, but that's basically, imagine you're like this lecturer in a college, and you've fought with people, and you're so desperate to go and
Mm.
interview this great poet, the Shire that you're such a fan of,
Yeah.
Noor, and you cross so many hurdles, and you take so much shit from so many people, and you go and interview him. And on his very first night, Noor has drunk too much and eaten too much, and he's fallen into a stupor. And Shabana Azmi, his second wife, comes and yells at Ompuri because she's like, y'all be enabling him. And she's like, you know what? Why don't you clean up his vomit? And Omburi cleans up after him, and he's like
Mm.
disgusted by it, and he's cleaning up after him, and he's literally one of the pieces of paper on which Noor has vomited is a thing that has a nazm written by him.
Mm.
And even then you can see Ompuri's acting in that scene is so beautiful. Like on his face you can see all of these like expressions one after the other. Like on the one hand he's grossed out, but then he's also really sad for him. He also feels like
Yeah.
Azmi is such a shrew to like yell at him. She's not. She's very valid in her criticisms of her husband's horrific lifestyle, but at the same time he's also like kind of trying to read the nazm at the same time.
Mm.
It's so amazing, and it's very like how the mighty have fallen. And it's such a good look at stars in any field. They don't have to be Urdu shayars, but they could be athletes, they could be actors, they could be singers, they could be scientists, they could be anything. But one day you were a something and you were a big deal, and now you're an absolute nobody, and the only people who can stand you are your chamchas, your hangers on, who are there for the free alcohol. And it's so sad.
Yeah.
But Shashi in this role as the decrepit, corpulent poet who has seen much better days, he's so amazing. Like, there's so much fire in him, and he's such a brat at the same time. But then, like he's always throwing these tantrums, and I'm like, boy, sit down. But he's also at the same time, when he is delivering those nazms and when he's saying those shares, his voice and his like control and his eloquence is beautiful. This is one of the things I've always loved about Shashi. I mean, this is true of all the Kapoors, but I would especially single out Shashi for his mastery over Hindi and Urdu, his extremely good pronunciation, and the fact that he is very eloquent and he speaks from the chest. So he really like projects his voice. There's so much power in his eloquence. And of course I don't want to belabor the point of how much I hate the nepos, but we're at a juncture in Hindi cinema where the nepos can't even say one line of Hindi properly, and they cannot speak good English either, which I'm like, you're so proud of like knowing English, except your English is also crap. So you really can't say anything properly. And then you have Shashi Kapoor, who is so well spoken in English, so well spoken in Hindi, so well spoken in Urdu, and was also well spoken in Punjabi. I've seen, I've seen an interview of his where he was speaking in Punjabi as well. And it sounds like he was very fluent in that language as well. And I'm like, where has all of that talent gone? Where has all of that hard work gone? He is so believable as an Urdu shayer.
I mean, if you're going to be a nepo, be the child of Prithviraj Kapoor, I think is the...
Yes, I think so.
And unfortunately, that ship has sailed, so no more.
Yes. I will say I have a lot of hopes from Zahan Kapoor, who is Shashi Kapoor's grandson, whom I adored in Black Warrant. And he also has an amazing command over the Hindi language. And I follow him on Instagram, and he seems to be someone who's very fond of Hindi poetry because he posts a lot. He reposts a lot of like Hindi poems and Urdu sher or shairi and stuff like that. And I've seen some interviews of his where he's spoken in Hindi, and he has that same ability to... he's very eloquent, just like his grandfather was. So that he's definitely my favorite nepo at the moment. But yeah, I mean, Shabana Azmi also is so good in this film. And I was this film has like the best screenshots. Like, I have such good screenshots. So Puri is this like, he's doing this job as a Hindi college teacher in this tiny little town called Mirpur, which I assume is somewhere in UP. We don't know, or Bihar or something. We have no idea where it is. It's fictional. And his students have zero respect for him. They always laugh at him. And when he's lecturing in class, they're just being like jerks about it. And him and his wife, Neena Gupta, is hilarious in this film. She's his wife who has no patience for him. And she's like, well, Munna needs new shoes. And so, are you going to come home early from school today so we can go and buy him new shoes? And like, he doesn't have, any interest in doing that. And there's a scene where he is grumpy and he's like, can you like give me my food on time? Because it's breakfast. And she says something like, breakfast, tea, washing, cleaning. That's all my life has come to. And I was like, the protagonists of Great Indian Kitchen, Mrs. would like a word right now. And in classic male protagonist of those movies style, Puri literally says to her, well, you're just at home all day. What do you even do? And I'm like, you know what you need? You need a bottle. You need like some shikanji thrown in your face is what you need right now. You need some chai thrown in your face, okay? So it's his character, Puri's character is so well written because on the one hand, he feels like no one at the college appreciates him. No one at the college appreciates his hard work as a lecturer, but also as a person who independently researches Urdu poetry. And he has written his own Urdu poems, which he is desperately trying to get published, but no one has bitten the bait yet. And he considers himself an intellectual who's stuck in this dead-end job where no one appreciates him. And I do have sympathy for him for that. But at the same time, he's such a jerk to his wife. So you feel like you're not appreciated enough. Guess what? You don't appreciate your wife either. So I just found that hypocrisy very interesting. And Shabana Azmi, it's her role is so interesting too, because she is the second wife, and she, Sushma Said, who is the first wife, the first Begum, says, I was not brought from a brothel like she was. So the implication being that she was like a sex worker or something, that Noor basically brought home and married her. And she considers herself a shaira, a poetess in her own right.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And Shashi Kapoor's character Noor always like poo-poos her poetry, and no one values her, whatever. And the one time that she has a mushaira and she says her own shairi, Puri, on the one hand, really loves the shairi, and immediately his brain goes to, well, she's clearly just passing off Noor's poems as her own. And he turns to Shashi Kapoor, who's sitting next to him, and he says, she's passing off your poems as her own. And Shashi Kapoor is just like that. And literally at that point, as a viewer, I was like, well, what is true? Are those actually her poems? And she is a shaira in her own right? Or is she, in fact, taking advantage of the fact that her husband is like so decrepit and drunk all the time and passing that off as under her own name? And there's a big scene, a blow-up fight between Shabana Azmi's character and Puri's character, where she says, you don't think I've written those nazms? And he's like, no, they're his nazms. And she's like, no, they're not. I wrote them. I'm a shaira in my own right. The only reason you think I'm not a shaira is because I'm a woman, and because I was brought from a brothel. And she literally says, I may not have had a formal education, and I may not have been like, raised in this like atmosphere or whatever. I may not have had this sort of practical schooling either, but that does not mean that I'm not a poetess in my own right. And you see the very casual misogyny with which Puri just kind of like, he's like, whatever. And I was like, you know what? I know you feel very unappreciated, and I know you feel like your gifts have not been appreciated by the world, but look at the energy you put out too. You hero worship this man who is way past his prime. If I was in Puri's place, I probably would have been like, yes, I was hero worshipping this person, but you know what? Your nazms are so good that you made me think that they were his, and I apologize for that mistake. But I would love to hear more of what you have to say, and maybe we can have a friendship, because I also like to write poetry, right? But it wouldn't even occur to him.
Yeah.
It's such a multi-layered film about intellectual snobbery, about being a man, male privilege. And again, like Great Indian Kitchen and Mrs., I found it very interesting that there's scenes where all the women in this movie have to constantly cater to Noor, because Noor wants biryani, and Noor only wants biryani where the onions are cut really finely, and Noor must have his rum. And when they're doing the recordings, there's a scene where they don't have enough money that the college has given, and Puri runs across the street and calls from a PCO, and he says, I need more money. The recording has stopped. I need money for rum and biryani. And I screenshotted that and I sent that to you. And I was like, the next time we have a scheduled podcast recording, I'm going to be like, I need money for rum and biryani. So the recording has stopped, Beth. But it's such a good movie, and the nazms in it that are attributed to Noor, I don't know why I keep saying Mir, that are attributed to Noor are actually by Mirza Ghalib. And some of the nazms are sung by Suresh Wadkar, whose voice I just think is melted chocolate. And it's so beautiful to hear him sing. The cinematography of this movie is beautiful. I mean, it's Merchant Ivory. And this is one of the movies that was directed by Ismail Merchant instead of just usually being the producer. And even at the end, when Noor dies and we see his janaza, like we see his funeral, and, the people are walking to the cemetery and everything, there's really beautiful song playing at that time as well. And then at the end, of course, so the reason that the movie is called In Custody is because at the end, Puri returns to Mirpur, basically a failure. The recordings did not go as planned. They don't have any viable recording. it
Mm.
was just kind of a wasted jaunt, and he's probably like relegated to life as a dead-end teacher in a dead-end job, and it's like whatever, he's made his peace with it. And Nina Gupta grumpily says to him, like, I'm gonna make tea, and by the way, a parcel came for you. And he's like, okay. And he opens the parcel, and the parcel is like a parting note from
Oh.
Shashi Kapoor's character saying, I have left behind my unpublished poems, and I would love it if you would publish them. And the scene is so beautifully framed. You
Mm.
have Nina Gupta in the background, just in profile, in silhouette. She's making chai. Om Puri sitting at the dining table, facing the camera, looking at the manuscript, and all the expressions on his face, the sadness, the regret, the
Mm.
love he has for that man, and just feeling like what a beautiful gift I got. I
Mm.
got to spend time with him, but also I got this beautiful gift of poetry. It's just, it
Mm.
broke my heart for Om Puri's character.
Mm.
Yeah, but never meet your heroes.
Never meet your heroes.
Yeah. And I was actually Googling because I was very shocked that Shashi Kapoor was only 55 in this film, because he really looks like and conducts
Yeah.
himself as like a 70-year-old. And I read that towards in the 90s, like post Jennifer Kapoor's death, he was purportedly drinking up to a bottle of vodka a day.
Mm.
And I was like, well, there's that Kapoor curse.
Yeah.
The Kennedys have their Kennedy curse here in America, and the Kapoors have their curse, because with those
Hmm.
Prithviraj Kapoor genes of extreme beauty and talent, there's also the fondness for alcohol.
Yeah.
And I was like, this movie is a very good advertisement for being a teetotaler.
Mm.
So yeah, you've seen In Custody,
I
and you
have,
love it.
yeah. Yeah.
It's
It,
sad.
it's too sad to rewatch for me, but yeah,
Yeah.
I was just noting that that's Ismail Merchant's directorial debut as well. So
Hmm.
like what an amazing job.
Yeah.
Um I yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Shabana and Shashi is another combo that I really like. So
Yeah.
um if I recall, they're not really together very much on screen in
Mm-mm.
this, right? But the idea that they make a good you buy
Yeah.
it, right? Like they're
Yeah.
together.
You can buy why a guy of his sort of lineage and stature would fall in love with
Hmm.
like a Tawayef, and he would
Hmm.
like get married to her and bring her home, and everybody
Hmm.
hates her. Obviously, the Badi Begum hates her, his mother hates her, everybody hates her because of where she's from. And
Yeah.
every scene that they have, they're bickering,
Mm.
and she's basically yelling at him because she's like, you're basically a drunken wastrel. And I like that this movie also shows us the predicament that the women are in, right? Because
Yeah.
they don't have any money.
No.
And the Badi Begum, Sushma Seth, she actually says to Om Puri, oh, you're gonna do a recording of my husband? That's great. Make sure you bring money. And he's like, what? I have to bring money? And she's like, yeah, poets have to eat too. And I just thought that was very interesting too,
Hmm.
because I know you and I have talked about this in the past, where we've said that both of us find it a little annoying when people make movies about artists,
Right.
because there's this whole like romanticizing of the lifestyle, and bad behavior is very sort of like validated because
Yeah.
they're an artist, and they're not normal like us, and it's fine, they're just like a misunderstood genius. I like the fact that in Custody he is called out for his
Yeah.
bullshit behavior.
Yeah.
Like, it is possible for someone to be a very talented poet and also be a jerk of a husband, and to have made very bad choices. And I love the fact that Shabana Azmi's character keeps saying that to him, because
Mm.
when we first meet her character, she's very much portrayed as a shrew, right?
Mm.
Because that's how other people see her.
Yeah.
Buddy Begum sees her as that. Shashi Kapoor's character sees her as that. Om Puri's character sees her as that. They're like, oh, this woman, who's she? She's a complete nobody. And she's like a former sex worker. And she thinks she's going to tell Noor how he should live. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, of course she's going to tell him how to live, because he's a mess, you
Yeah.
know? So I like the fact that her character was so well written too. But it's a sad movie.
It is.
Um, your old Shashi movie, how old is he in that film?
He would have been almost 50, late
Okay.
40s.
Okay. Yeah. No. So he's 55 in this one. Do we know if is Muhafiz his final film?
No, it's not. There are quite a few. Well, there's a couple anyway
Oh.
after that. There's one called Side Streets, which is an American film, which I
Okay.
have seen. There's he's the narrator in Jinnah, which I've never
Okay.
seen. he's in a TV version of Gulliver's Travels.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So there's only 4 or 5 after it, but yeah, to think he stopped acting relatively young, in a way,
Yeah.
again, compared to some of his contemporaries, it's because
Yeah.
like I think
I mean,
about
Amitabh is in his 80s at this point.
right, or you think about Dharmendra having that great role in Rocky or Ronnie. Like I could have
Yeah.
seen Shashi doing something like that,
Yeah.
but you know,
I think it's probably like lifestyle. And if one truly is in the throes of alcoholism, that's going to be
oh
very
yeah,
hard to show up on schedule and stuff.
yeah.
Also, I think towards the end of his life, he was on dialysis. So he was in a
Mm,
wheelchair and he had to get like the kidney
yeah,
stuff done pretty regularly. So I don't think he even had any mobility
yeah.
towards the end of his life. I think he had won an award. Was it like a Lifetime Achievement
Yeah,
Award
he
or
got a
something?
Lifetime Falke Award.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing the pictures of him on stage with Shabana and like
Yeah.
a lot of his,
Carmela and right, a lot of the
yeah,
women
they were
are
all
and
like
some of his
flanking
family.
him.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he was like in a wheelchair and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah. So what are your thoughts of Shashi as the baby actor, the more seasoned professional, and then the
Hmm.
actor towards the end of his career?
I love that at the end of his career, he is still able to get and choose some of these more interesting roles. And he's not just like, so I think I've mentioned the first film I actually ever saw him in was a Mithun film where Shashi is
Oh,
an army commander to Mithun's Commando. The film's called Commando. So again, could have been anybody, fine, but like it doesn't matter that it's him, you know. So I'm glad
yeah,
that he had these other opportunities and did continue to do Merchant Ivory, continue to do
right.
international work and everything. So that's really great. As a youngster, and this is obviously the times as well, but he's got this kind of like preppy, bouncy energy in the 60s that I do enjoy. Like he's great in these kind of cotton candy.
With the mufflers and the fashions.
And like the drain pipe
Yeah.
pants and like, doing the twist and all that kind of stuff. And some of those are like a mystery with Sharmila. There's Omne, is it Omne Somne that's kind of the mystery one. And there's so he has a very particular streak of hero. His type of hero is a little different. Now I'm sure other men were doing this too, like some of what Biswajit does is sort of like this,
Mm,
right? Like, and I'm not going to compare those two, but there is this, and young Jitendra, right? Like this kind of preppy bounce.
yeah.
Um,
Young Rishi did that too.
yeah, yeah. And then by the time you get into the 70s, well, into the 70s, he flows into that version of Masala really well. But as stated,
Hmm.
he's never going to be the major angry young man or the action hero, but he's like adjacent. He's right
Hmm.
there and supporting those people, but he's not as much that. And then he also, is still doing cool international stuff and whatever. So it's a career full of really interesting choices, some of which he really created for himself. And of course, his produced films are amazing.
We
It's
love
almost too bad there
Utsav.
aren't some more of those, but they really are
Yeah.
great. And he uses himself really well.
Hmm.
Um, it's not like, oh, this is my vanity project
Right.
thing. Like they're very, very thoughtful. So I think he's a really thoughtful actor almost all the time. And
Yeah.
it's fun to see the different things that he did. I was thinking like if I'd left myself more time to pick my movies, like what is a sub theme I would have come up with or whatever, like maybe
Mm,
slightly mysterious ones or Shashi's a bit of a rake or I think I could have found some similarities across these different eras.
right.
I even my random choice of the late one that I saw, Pyaar Ki Jeet, like I thought he was really
Mm,
good in that, and maybe some other people could have done it too, but it's not a boring role. It's not just like grandpa over here in the village, he's
yeah.
got stuff to do and they gave him speeches that he handles really well. And his chemistry with Rekha is always interesting in the different movies they do together. And obviously kind of the pinnacle there is Kali for me, but again,
Hmm.
it's but even in their masala things, I like them together. And even though he famously was rude about her early in her career,
Yeah.
but obviously they figured it out. It seems, well, I shouldn't say obviously, it seems like they figured it out and she was willing to work with him and everything. And he's a great supporting role to her in the film that I watched,
Hmm.
for example. So
I think, in conclusion, as a person who's seen a lot of Shashi Kapoor films and really
mhm.
likes them, I think my favorite Shashi Kapoor roles funnily enough, happened to be where he was strictly in late middle age and where he looks really middle aged, because New Delhi Times would be like
Right.
probably my number one Shashi Kapoor
Sure.
movie. And then I also really love Kalyog. And I have not seen Vijayta. It's still on my list. I really want to see it. But I've seen some songs from Vijayta. And you know that like late middle-aged Shashi Kapoor who has the mustache and now he has the jowls and he's
Yeah.
like he's put
Little
on the
graying.
crowns.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he wears like a chashma and
Hmm.
he's not fashionable
No.
anymore. Like he's wearing like kurta pajamas or
Hmm.
he's wearing like basic boring pants and button down shirts and like New Delhi Times or whatever. That Shashi Kapoor is very interesting to me because that Shashi Kapoor is the one that is the least Kapoor-esque, right?
And we talk
Because
about women in a deglammed avatar, but that's
yes,
his deglammed avatar,
that's
right?
his declamed avatar. And in those films, he's actually the least Kapoor to me,
Yeah.
because to me, one of the hallmarks of being a Kapoor is looking rich.
Yeah.
It's like Rishi Kapoor once said, I think it was in Rendezvous with Semi Garewal, he said, we're Kapoors. We can't look poor. And
Yeah.
so we're not cast as someone poor. And he doesn't look poor per se, but he very much looks like the editor of New
He's
Delhi
not
Times.
chic, right?
He's not chic. Yeah, he's not
Yeah.
chic. He's not suave. He's
He's
not the
middle class, but
sophisticated. He's solidly middle class. He's probably thinking about his EMI, like car payments or something.
yeah.
He's probably worried about his kid getting into like engineering college or
Yeah.
something. And that Shashi Kapoor to me is like my favorite Shashi Kapoor,
Yeah.
because it's so hard to see someone pull that off, I think, because the only other people I know who used to play that kind of role are strictly art film actors like Girish Karnad, whom I
Sure.
adore,
Right.
or Om Puri or Kulbhushan Karbanda or Nasiruddin Shah, but they're so strictly in the parallel world. And then he's one of those that he just kind of had a foot in each boat, so to
Yeah.
speak. Like he did that really well. And so I think that's actually my favorite Shashi of
Yeah.
them all. What is, if I had to ask you
Mm.
your top three Shashi performances, which would they be?
This is so hard. I think we did this in the episode we did on him, so I might even say something different than I did before. But Kalapatar remains up there for me.
Yeah.
And I did think about rewatching that for this, but then I wanted something more chipper.
Yeah.
Um, I I mean Shakespeare Walla is a forever favorite
Mm.
for me. Um, there's just so many. I mean, he's so amazing in The Householder. He's so amazing in Kali Yuga and Janoon. He's, I like him in some of these 70s masala things like Do or Do Punch, I think is really
Mm.
fun. Um, he's a criminal pickpocket in that one too. He's got a little run of pickpocket films here. I know I've talked about Heat and Dust a little bit on this one in
Mm.
this podcast,
Yeah.
and he's great in that. I'm just kind of flipping through. Um, I don't know. There are a few films here and there where I feel like he's phoning it in a little bit, but his phoning it in is still pretty solid. So
Yeah.
you can tell there's nothing special going on there with him, but
It's a job.
it's a job. Yeah. And
Yeah.
why he is the person who gets called out for this by his brother when most working actors have things that are just
Yeah.
jobs to them. Like why is poor Shashi the one who's picked on for this? I don't know. Like why
Yeah.
doesn't he say this about Shami Kapoor? Like
Oh, yeah.
or
Of
his own
course.
children, for example. But yeah, there's a lot. There's just a lot that I think are good. There's a 70s masala he does with Shabana called Fakira,
Oh,
where
yeah.
again, where he's kind of a Robin Hood thief type guy. Like that one's really silly. It's got a drive-in villain lair with big cars and like disguises and stuff. I think that one's really fun. So um it's hard to go wrong, really.
Yeah.
Like you might not love the movie around him, but I think um he's usually
There's,
showing up really well in whatever it is and adapting himself to all these different
yeah.
projects. It's not like there's a Shashi Kapoor persona and that's all he will do,
Yeah.
which I admire.
Yeah, I mean, versatility for sure, and just being able to fit into any kind of like milieu.
Hmm.
I think versatility was definitely like the thing that comes to mind when I think of Shashi Kapoor. I think my favorite roles of him would probably be number one would be New Delhi Times,
Sure.
number two would be Junoon,
Mhm.
And then number three, I don't know. Maybe The Householder, because he's so darling in it and so
Yeah.
cute. And Leela Naidu, I love Leela Naidu. So I think my
Yeah.
ranking would be that. Yeah, New Delhi Times. So that's middle-aged Shashi Kapoor, and then Junoon, which is also middle-aged Shashi Kapoor, and then Householder, which is baby Shashi Kapoor.
Baby. Little baby.
They're both so baby. Like in that scene in the bus when they're going together to the wedding, and Neela Knight is sitting at the window seat, and he's sitting next to her, and he's in like the little black coat with the flower, and she's with the sari with the gunga. Oh, I die. The stills from that movie. It's like it's impossible to watch that film and not have like a smile on your face the whole time. I'm like,
And,
squeeze.
and let this be a reminder to audience, anyone listening to this who has not seen it, please watch his film with Haley Mills, A Matter of
Hmm.
Innocence. That's a really fun one. Or um, so he's yeah, again, just like what a weird career.
Yeah. I don't know if we were doing ice creams for people when we did the Kapoor series. I know we picked vanilla for Ranbir Kapoor. I think that's the
We
only time
I
we picked the
re-listened
same
I
flavor.
re-listened to our Shashi episode kind of in prepping for this one, and we did ascribe some ice creams
What
to.
did we? I'm so curious.
Well, so I mentioned that our friend Carla had a dream a long time ago that there was an ice cream flavor called Shashi Kapoor Crunch, which was like a coffee ice cream with like chocolate curls in
That
it.
sounds great.
Um, so yeah, we both felt like some kind of coffee-ish thing because it also bridges India and the West in a way that
Mm-hmm.
I think you have to represent for him. So
Yeah.
I was thinking today actually while I was out getting groceries earlier, like, oh, what about like if you had a more Indian flavor, but then you added an English toffee on it to like nod to
Okay.
his multicultural marriage and family and everything,
Yeah.
and some of his productions, and also that there's a lot of options, or add in something American because James Ivory is an American. I think
Yeah.
I think people
Mm-hmm.
assume he's British, but he's not. He's American. Um, so there's lots of things
Mm-hmm.
you could do.
All right. Well, I think that concludes this episode. Happy birthday, Shashi Kapoor, wherever you are. I hope there's a lot of rum
Yeah.
and biryani, and good music and poetry and all the things that you seem to value. And also Jennifer is with you,
Yeah.
hopefully. And did you have anything else to add in our celebration of Shashi Kapoor?
No, but I was just thinking to myself earlier, like we could do this every year and we would run out of films eventually. But there's a lot to discuss, and there's a lot of weird ones to choose from, which is just so fun.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for watching this episode, and then let us know what you think about Shashi's movies. Have you seen any of the six films that we discussed today, or have you seen any others? Is there a movie you really think that Beth and I need to watch?
Uh,
Tell us what you think, and we'll see you next week. Bye.